Hello and welcome. My name is JC Cabrera. I am the Applications Engineer and Marketing Manager for Graphtec America. Today's topic is setting up ONYX cut server with the FC9000. Now, just keep in mind that everything that I will be explaining here will also work for the 8600, except for the barcode system, as the 8600 does not have one. So one of the first things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the latest ONYX and that we have the latest firmware for the FC9000. So if we go over to help, we want to make sure that you are at least running this version, 21.1.1.175. So any of the ONYXs that have the cut server should be running at least this version here in order for everything to work correctly. All right, and then of course update your firmware on your plotter. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go over to File, go to Manage Cutters. It'll give you this message here saying that this will stop any processing or printing, which is fine. As long as you're not printing anything, go ahead and hit Yes. Now, by default, on this window that pops up here, you're going to see everything selected. So what you want to do is you want to clear all, especially if you just have the Graphtec cutter, right? Because this will only show you the cutters. So here, what we're going to do is, well, for me, I'm going to grab all of our Graphtec cutters, and if you only have the 9000, then just select the 9000, and then also you're going to highlight it. Okay, so the reason we do that is because when we go into quick sets, which is the following step, we want to make sure that we only see the cutter that we want to see. We don't want to see everything here. So that's really the reason why we're doing this. But since we're here, we're going to go ahead and click on Configure. Configure has a lot of let's say more advanced features. So we want to take a look at them because there are some that will apply. And if not now, eventually it would be something that you might want to consider. So I'm kind of going to go down the line here. So the first thing we're going to look at is the barcode to print. So by default, you're going to get that barcode it's going to print. Now, keep in mind that even though the barcode is printing, you don't necessarily need to use it. You can just use the 4 registration marks. You can ignore the barcode if you're not going to use the barcode. Main reason for the barcode is really if you're doing multiple jobs. So if you have jobs on a roll, that's really where the barcode is going to excel, right? Because it's going to read the registration mark, cut the first job. When it's done, it's going to look for the second job via the barcode, and then it's going to continue like that until it finishes the roll. So that's really the function of the roll media. So when we click on it, you're going to have a few options. Now, the standard option you're going to ignore because it's really more for our flatbeds, not for the roll fed. So the other option is none. So at this point here, if you do not want to use the barcode system, then, or you don't want the barcode to print, then you hit none. And then you hit OK, and when you send your job, it just won't print the barcode. So those are your options. You want to use roll media or none. The next option is mark length. You just want to leave that at default. There shouldn't be any reason why you should be enlarging or reducing your mark lengths. It is an advanced feature. As you get comfortable, if you see you need to do that, you can go ahead and make the changes. The next thing is the pattern. So you have type 1 registration marks and type 2, or pattern 1 or pattern 2 as ONYX calls them. By default, you'll get pattern 2. You can stick with pattern 2. Either one will work just fine. It's actually a personal preference really because they will both do the job. The next is intermediate marks. So I will talk a little bit more about intermediate marks, which is very important. By default, they're off. What that means when they're off, when there's none, that just means that you're going to get 4 registration marks and nothing in between. When you do turn this on, you turn on the vertical, you'll get the registration marks that are on the side, or you can do the horizontal, which are the ones on top. Typically, you don't use those unless you're really having issues, maybe with your printer, that you're getting maybe an hourglass effect or your media is shrinking. Then you'll want to use this. Other than that, you just want to stick with vertical. And then, of course, you have another option that is for both, which will print everything. And I've got an illustration that I want to show you right now, just so you'll know what I mean with the intermediate marks. It is very important. Again, it is something that we suggest that you do on jobs that are longer than 3 feet or a meter. You know, anything longer than that, then you want to add those segmented marks. So typically, like I mentioned, you will only see the registration marks right on each corner, right? So you'll see 4. And that's all it'll read. Now, if you add the segmented marks, then what it'll do is that it'll read just the first 4. So like in this area here. So here's an example here. Here are the segmented marks right here. Okay, so what it'll do is it'll read the first 4 here. And again, this is another option that you will have to select in order for it to read the first 4. And we'll look at that once we get into the cut server. So it'll read the first 4 and it'll cut this. Once it's done here, then it'll read the remaining 2 that are up on top, and it'll cut this area. And then your cuts will join here, and you'll get a seamless cut. You will not see that there's any gap or anything here. This way, what you're getting here is consistency in the cut. So what the registration mark does is that it looks to see where the material is, and it adjusts or compensates for any skewing that might have occurred. So that's how the segmented marks work. Okay, so by default, it's off. Just know that you'll need to turn it on, and anything that you do here will stay on until you turn it off. Okay, so let me just turn on the vertical. So after that, you have the repeat interval. So repeat interval means that every 19.69, it will be repeating the registration marks. So like the example that I have here, this job is, I believe it's like 60 inches long or so. So what it's doing here is that it's creating these segmented marks every 20 inches. Actually, it's a little longer. I think it's like 80 inches. So yeah, it'll do the segmented marks every 19.96. Now, you notice there is a value here, right? So you can change that. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller. I personally like this size. I think it's just right. So basically, you know, it's around 20 inches or so. And I think that's perfect for when you're doing long jobs. This way, it will always check to make sure that the material is not skewed. And then you have the mark thicknesses, which again, it's one of those things where you don't want to touch. Once you are more familiar with it, you have you're more advanced, then you can go ahead and tweak this if you like. And then you have let me turn this off here for right now. Okay, we'll leave that at segmented marks, or excuse me, not segmented by barcode. So we'll leave that at the barcode. And then, so what we have next is the mark X margin. So what this is, notice that the value is at 0. When you're doing barcode, you really don't want to change anything that's here. You just want to leave it at default. Again, You can tweak it later on once you're comfortable, but there really is no need. Notice it's already at 0, so there really isn't a margin. So the Mark X margin means that it is from the edge of the material to the registration mark. That's the value that's there. Mark Y, notice that it's grayed out so that you cannot tweak it. And then the image X margin means that it is from the edge of the material to the edge of the first image. And again, notice that it's also on 0. Okay. And then this last one here is image Y margin, which the Y margin, by the way, is the feeding direction for ONYX, and the X margin is the left and right. Again, these are values that you don't want to change. They work perfectly fine the way they are. They've already been tweaked to the point where they work just fine. And then set cut file, you don't want to touch that. That's more when you're doing hot folders. So that's really what you need to do. You need to concentrate more on if you want to use the roll media and if you want to turn on the intermediate marks that they call them here, okay? So we'll leave that as is for now. We'll hit done. The second thing that we need to do is we need to create a quick set. So let's go into configure printer. Again, it's going to give us this message again. We'll click yes. And I've already created one, but let's go ahead and create a new one. And so here, we'll click on new. And the first thing it asks you is to create a name. Create whatever name you like, anything that will help you identify. Because when you submit your job, you need to select this quick set in order for the ONYX to know that you're going to submit a job that needs to be print and cut. So name it, and then the second thing is you're going to come here where it says contour cutter selection right here towards the center, and then remember that I had mentioned at the beginning that you need to select just the Graphtec cutters. Otherwise, what would have happened is you would have had a whole list of cutters that you don't need. So select the FC9000. By the way, if you're using the FC8600, then you'll want to click the Graphtec cutter. But we're working on the FC9000. We'll click on the FC9000. Next, where it says use cutter path prefix. Now, ONYX has done some changes. In the past, the naming convention that they used for the file that you were submitting was always cut contour, and then you can add anything after that. But now they actually have other options. So I clicked on this little wheel here, and you can actually select any one of these, or you can create your own name when you are creating the file. So we'll look at that when a little later when I show you guys a file. I typically like to stick with cut contour. That's what they've been using for years. It actually is kind of like a standard in the industry. So if you use any other third-party RIP, typically this is how it's going to start with when you are creating your cut line. So if you're using, for example, our product, the Graphtec Pro Studio, and you've created your files with cut contour, Graphtec Pro Studio will automatically recognize that you have cut lines. Same with Flexi and same with other, like I said, third party. So I like to stick with this one. But contour, we'll leave that, just add that there. And then that's it. That's all we need to do. We're going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to click OK. So we've created our quick set. Next, let's look at the cut server. So in the cut server, we need to do a few configurations, right? So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click on Manage Cutters. And if you haven't opened this yet, the first thing that's going to pop up is this right here, okay? Add Cutter. So you select your cutter here. So browse and look for the cutter. Here's the 8600 and here's the 9000. And below it, it says display name. Now, just keep in mind that at this point, you can actually change the name to whatever you like. And this is the only time you're going to be able to make that change. The reason being is because when you do this behind the scenes, it actually creates a folder that's in the root of your ONYX folder in the C drive or wherever you have your ONYX installed. So that's the reason why you can only make that change here. If you want to change the name later, you'll have to delete it and add it again. So just a little tip. And again, if you have more than one cutters, then of course you want to name them differently so you'll know. Then the next thing we're going to do is FC9000, right? We're going to go ahead and click on Configure. We'll click on Configure. We have another window. Again, these are all things that we're going to do just to set everything up. Once everything is set up, you're going to have a nice workflow and you don't have to do this anymore. This is just really a one-time setup. So up on top, you've got a couple of options, right? So here's where you need to decide, okay, how is ONYX connected? Is it connected via Ethernet? Is it connected via USB cable? Or a new option for the FC9000 is that you can use the USB thumb drive, or you basically what that means is that it will create a file that's called an XPF file, and you can store it in your thumb drive, and then the machine can read it, which I'll actually show you a little video just now how that works, because once you select however you're connected, then you also need to tell the cutter that, okay? So the cutter needs to know how it is that you're connected to ONYX. So let's look at this quick video, and this is going to show you, right? So we're into menu, and here it says destination. Click on the destination, USB drive, server USB, and then server LAN. In this particular case, it was just selected USB, which means it's going to go to the thumb drive. So once that's done, you're really all set. You just click on the barcode. It gives you a little message there that you need to position it really underneath the start mark. So the start mark is the little black mark, which we'll look at in a second. So there it is. That's the start mark right there. Just position it underneath. It can be half an inch. It can be an inch. Doesn't matter, because what will happen, as long as it's underneath it, it will just start looking for it. So I'll hit enter. It's underneath the start mark. And notice how now the sensor is looking for the start mark. Start mark tells it that, hey, there's a barcode you need to read. Read the barcode, and it knows that it needs to look for the job in the thumb drive, because that's the way we set it up. If you were connected via Ethernet, then it would look for the job in the queue of your ONYX, right? So again, it finished that one job, it's looking for the second job, reads the start mark, it's telling it there's a barcode you need to read, reads the barcode, fetches the job, again, however you selected it, Ethernet, USB cable, or USB thumb drive, and then it will, and so on. So just keep in mind that's the first thing that you need to do when you're setting everything up as well. Okay, so that was the connection. The next thing that we're going to look at is I'm going to skip a couple of things here. We don't really need to discuss them. Filter cut jobs by device. So what happens here is if you have a lot different quick sets for different cutters, then the options will come here and your job will go into wherever your cutter is. It's just something to help you organize your files. Now, this next part is really, really important. Here it says enable role server. So if you are connected via Ethernet or if you are connected via USB cable, you need to make sure that if you're using the barcode, you check mark this. This means that the cut server is basically waiting for a communication from the cutter to retrieve the job. If this is not selected, then it will not know, or basically it won't retrieve the job. So just remember that you need to click that. And also remember that when you are done and you're not going to use the barcode anymore, you just want to use the registration marks, turn it off. You don't need it. All right, and the next thing is cut job settings. So this one is pretty important. So there's a couple options here. Notice that there's a default. The default is the 4 marks, multiple marks, and segmented area correction. So what this means is you're going to tell the cut server how it should read the registration marks or which registration marks it needs to read, right? So if you select 4 marks or you leave it at the default, that means that it's only going to read the 4 marks that are in each corner. If you tell it to read multiple marks, what that is going to do, it's going to read all the registration marks. So like in this illustration, let's do this one. This illustration here, what it's going to do here is that it's going to read all 4 marks, right? So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it's going to cut. So let's go to cut server. So that is one option, but I recommend that you use the segmented area correction, which means it's only going to read the first 4, just like the illustration I have here, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to read those 4 registration marks, cut this area here, right? It's not going to go past this, just cut up to here. Once it's done, then it's going to read the remaining 2, cut this area here, and you'll have that seamless cut. So just keep that in mind. All right, we'll go back here, and then here's where you can change the default if you want, or you can all the options here. You can choose the option here. Now, once you're in here, there's also another option. Okay, by default, it's set up to feed to the end of the job, which that just means that it's going to basically feed out. So when the job is done, it's actually going to stay fed out. Okay. Return to origin means that it's going to feed in. So once it finishes cutting, it's going to basically suck it back in. You want to keep it at feed to end of job. Again, it's just options that it's giving you. Now, there's also an option to perform the cross-cut. If you are familiar with cross-cutting, that just basically means that after the job is done, the FC9000 has a cross-cutter, and it will cut off your job, and it will fall into the basket. Now, this option only works when you are just using the registration marks, not the barcode. For the barcode, you actually have to turn that on inside of the machine and tell it on the machine, not here. It will not work. So if you turn this on and you're using the barcode, it will not do the crosscut. So it's in under menus and under arms, you'll see crosscut. You just turn it on. There's 2 options, on or off. This is just for reading the registration marks. So just keep that in mind. Right, we'll cancel that here. So all these things are very important. Those are things that you can use as you're getting comfortable with your machine. Now, another very, very important job, and this will help your workflow. It'll help you be a lot smoother and just a little more seamless of a workflow. So by default, you get all these options that are here. What we need to do is we need to create our own. What this means basically is that if your file, when you create your cut line, and your cut line, you name it condition 1, it's going to read condition 1, and it has a preset. So if I click on configure, what that means is that it's going to go to condition 1. So if you have your condition 1 set up, that means that's what it's going to do. If you named your file, your cut line rather, condition 2, then note that it says condition 2, it's going to actually cut on condition 2. So because I did a cut contour, I would have to add it. So I'm going to come here and name it cut contour, and actually my file is called underscore kiss, and I am using condition 1 for the kiss cut. I also have a perf cut because the FC9000 also has a channel, so you can do perf cutting. Click on add again, cut contour underscore perf. Now you can name it whatever you like. This helps me identify my cut line, but I always use cut contour. Whatever you put after that is just for you to identify. We'll click on OK. So now we have these two. Kiss cut is set for condition 1, and cut contour is set for perf is set for condition 2. So we've added those. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to close this. Now, if you remember, I clicked on Manage Cutters, right? That was when I first opened Cut Server and I was setting up a driver. You also have a shortcut. If you look at these little wheels here, you can click on those gears and it will take you to your job that you created. So this is the one I created here, right here. Okay. And if you don't need these here, you can always delete those. Okay. Notice how I did that here. Okay. Segment area correction. Okay. Set that up. So now the cut server is set up. I'm going to go ahead and minimize that, and we're all set. So now we'll look for our job. Here it is. I want it to go to that printer. We'll set it up for FC9000. It's fine. We'll hit open. And so now it's going to start ripping the job here. It should recognize our job. Now, notice that there's a preview on the right-hand side, but you really can't tell if it's recognizing the cut line or not. So what you do is you double-click on the file itself. Notice that now you actually have this line around each one of the cuts. It's a magenta line. Now, this will tell you that you're actually all set up. Okay. And remember that what I did is when I hit file, you also have to select your quick set. Let's assume that you didn't select your quick set. Well, it'll give you the option here to go ahead and tell it that, hey, I want to cut this job, right? So you can choose your cutter here in case you forget when you submitted the job. Let's also assume that maybe you don't see a cut line around here, a magenta cut line around here. That doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't do anything right. What you need to do is you need to make sure that this option here to preview the cut line is selected. Sometimes it's turned off, but by default, it's typically turned on. So what we'll do is we'll go into general settings. Okay, it gave me that message again. And then it's right here. Display cut path preview in image preview. So if this is turned off, then it would not have shown you that that preview. So make sure that this one is also checked. Another one that you want to make sure that is checked is this one here, because sometimes the RIP will tell you. So it'll tell you that you've selected a job to be cut, but it can't find any cut lines, and typically means that you have forgot possibly a step when designing the cut lines. So it's actually a good reminder. So you want to also keep that one turned on, right? So at this point, we're all set. I'm going to go ahead and print now. As soon as I hit the print, this should go right into the 9,000, okay? And so here it is. So here's your preview job. And if you notice on the right-hand side here, notice how it says cut contour kiss, cut contour perf. So this name coincides with the actual name that I named the file. The cut file was cut contour kiss and cut contour perf, which is the same name that I put when configuring the cutter. Again, this way, when your job comes in, it already knows what condition it needs to go to, right? And in what order. So the kiss cut is going to go first and the perf is going to go next. Let's say the order was incorrect. You can actually just click on it and move it up and change the order, but you want to keep the perf at the bottom. So everything is set up. This is the way we set it up here. Okay, kiss first, perf second. So it doesn't matter the order in which you create this, because that's the order that it's going to cut. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, when you're doing print and cut, I suggest not to touch anything that's here. This is more advanced, and if you do shrink anything here, then your cut file is really not going to be read because it's already printed at specific size, right? So you don't want to touch anything. So just a reminder again, so if I click on the little gear here, enable roll server, okay, and then you click close. So what you're going to do now is you are not going to click on cut now. You're going to click on the barcode button, which is on the video that I showed you, this barcode button. You're going to click on this barcode button and then just follow the steps and it will start cutting. If you're only going to use the registration marks, then take that off and then click on cut now, and then your job will start cutting. So let's look at the file real quick. Let's look at the file that I just sent here. So there's actually two cut lines. Let me zoom in here. All right, and I'll remove the image here. So this line here is my perf line, and this one is my kiss. All right, and notice that I also created layers here, and I put the kiss on top and perf at the bottom. Again, that's just to be organized. I also named it here just for me to identify. That's fine. You can create the layers or you don't have to. As long as you do the colors correctly, you're fine. So let's look at one of these colors here. Let's see. Let's select. There it is. So you need to create a new swatch, right? When you are creating the cut line, this is where you name it. So you need to have the cut contour. Both C's are uppercase. So cut contour. And then I just put underscore. You don't have to. underscore, and then name whatever you want to name it. It says copy because I already have this job here. The important part as well is to name the, to name it and to also make sure that it is a spot color, okay? Because that's how it's going to identify. So once you send it to the RIP, it's going to say, oh, it's a spot color. And it says cut contour. Okay, so now I know that it's going to be a cut job, right? That's how ONYX is going to identify. So that's how you do it. Also, you can create your own swatches. We created some here, and also ONYX has their own that you can download from their website. And notice how they name them as well. Cut contour kiss, cut contour pen, perf cut, and through cut. All right, so again, they also use the cut contour convention, but you can name it. So it's kind of up to you. And so that's how you're going to create the cut file. And lastly is with Cut Server, you can also cut just straight vinyl. Let's say you're not going to do a print and cut, but you want to use it to cut vinyl images. Well, it's perfectly fine as well, as long as the file is saved as an SVG. So I'm in Cut Server. I click on Open, look for the file, SVG, choose the cutter that I want it to go to, and then just click Open. And there it is. So here, you're just cutting final, right? There's no registration marks to read or anything. Here you can actually fiddle around with some of the options that are here, right? So you can rotate it if you like. You can add multiple cuts here, right? Put some gap into it. The options are there, and then you can use. Let's say you're going to use condition 1, so you can use the same one, contour kiss, because you know it's already on condition 1. And then from here, you're going to go cut now. And then that's basically it. So if we look at the file here, which I believe I have it, here's the file. It's basically it. All you have to do is just save it as an SVG file, right? So SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. And then you're basically all set. So this concludes the setting up of ONYX Cut Server with the FC9000. Thank you very much.